So today's going to be NCBM0114, completing the square and quadratic standard form. So this is what we're going to be doing today, but since this space is so limited, I just distribute the problems throughout more pages, okay? So first it says factor x squared plus 6x plus 8. This is something we've already been done, so we should be already a little familiar. We have x squared plus 6x plus 8. In this, since the first coefficient is a 1, we can just concentrate on the 8, which is the last coefficient. And we have 8, and give me the factors of 8. So it's 1 times 8, 2 times 4. Which of those combinations, when you add, will give you a 6? Well, that's this one. How do I know we're adding? This guy right there is telling you. So let's open our parentheses. We know that this is x and x because we have two x's. We're gonna be adding positives, and 4 and 2. Let's check our work. This is 2x. These two are 4x. We put them together, we end up with 6x, which is what we had originally. So on this one, same thing, x squared minus 7x plus 12. Again, this is telling me to add, but we have to add negatives. So therefore, and the first coefficient is still a 1, so we're just going to concentrate in the 12. Factors of 12, 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Those are the factors of 12. Which of those, when you add, will give you a 7? It's going to be those two, so let's open parentheses. X, negative, and negative, because we're still adding but negative numbers. 3 and 4. Let's check our work. This is negative 4x. This is negative 3x, which equals negative 7x. So this is true, what we had originally. So again, we're going to be adding with negatives. So I have x squared minus 14x plus 49. Factors of 49 is 49. 1 times 49. 2 no, 3 no, 4 no, 5 no, 6 no, and 7 times 7. Which of those, when you add, will give you 14? That's going to be 7 plus 7. So open parentheses. X minus 7, which can be written as x minus 7 squared. And this guy right here is also known as a perfect square trinomial because we have a final of x minus 7 squared. So, using standard form to graph a parabola. Standard form of quadratic function. The quadratic function f of x equals a times x minus h squared plus k, where a cannot be equal to 0, is in standard form, also known as vertex form. The reason it is known as a vertex form is because the h and the k compose your vertex, as it's telling us right there. So, how do we complete the square? So, rules, complete the square. We're in ax squared plus bx plus c. Then our first rule would be to be the first coefficient, must be 1. So on this one, we have x squared plus 6x plus 8. Our first coefficient is 1, so we're good. Now, second rule, we're going to use b over 2 squared as our third coefficient. Squared plus 6x plus 6 over 2 squared plus 8 minus 6 over 2 squared. Remember, this 2, I'm adding both a positive and a negative to maintain a balance. So you always have to do this. So this becomes x squared plus 6x plus 3 squared plus 8 minus 3 squared. Now I'm going to factor from these two right here. So this becomes x plus 3 squared plus 8 minus 9. X plus 3 squared 8 minus 9 is negative 1. So this is our standard form. Meaning that these two are equivalent. These two functions are equivalent to each other. So we have x squared plus 6x plus 8. And then the next one we have x plus 3 squared minus 1. Graph them. See how we're only demonstrating one graph? That's because they're the same thing. Let me delete the bottom one. And it's still there. So first rule was to make sure our first coefficient was a 1, which it is, so we're good to go. So I have x squared minus 10x plus 9. Then I'm going to use my b, which is negative 10 in this occasion, over 2. So I have x squared minus 10x plus negative 10 over 2 squared plus 9 minus negative 10 over 2 squared. This will become x squared minus 10x plus negative 5 squared plus 9 minus negative 5 squared. I'm going to factor from these two, so this becomes x minus 5 squared plus 9 minus 25. So this becomes x minus 5. 9 minus 25 is negative 16. And this is our standard form. Let's make sure that this is true, that both functions are equivalent to each other by comparing them. X squared minus 10x plus 9 is the first one. And our second function was x minus 5 squared minus 16. Let's graph them. And again, now on this one, we have negative x squared plus 6x minus 8. This is okay. This is still continues the same. I'm going to factor a negative out. So I'm going to factor this negative outside. So a negative divided by a negative, make it a positive. So this is x squared. A positive divided by a negative, that's going to give me negative 6x. A negative divided by a negative, it's going to give me positive 8, like so. Now, I will maintain my saying. Now I'm going to complete the square with everything that's inside the parentheses, and I will carry that negative on through the whole process. So now I have negative, open parentheses, x squared minus 6x plus blank, which is going to be filled in by negative 6 over 2 squared plus 8 minus negative 6 over 2 squared. Now I have negative x squared minus 6x plus negative 3 squared plus 8 minus negative 3 squared. X squared minus 6x plus negative 3 squared plus 8 minus 9. So I'm going to be factoring from these two. So I'm carrying that negative. So I have x minus 3 squared minus 1. Now I'm going to distribute this negative. So I have negative x minus 3 squared plus 1. And this is in standard form. Let's check to see if it's true that not negative x minus 3 squared plus 1. And the second one was negative x squared plus 6x minus 8. And we only have one, so it looks like we're good. Last problem for today. Again, we have to make sure the first coefficient is a 1, which is not. So we have to make that. So we have 2x squared plus 8x plus 7. I must factor that 2 out, so I'm factoring that 2, and I have x squared plus 4x plus 7/2. So that 2 is going to be carried throughout the process. I'm just going to factor what's inside the parentheses, so that we'll complete the square with that. So, therefore, I have 2x squared plus 4x plus 4 over 2 squared plus 7/2 minus 4 over 2 squared. So I have 2x squared plus 4x plus 2 squared plus 7 over 2 minus 2 squared. 2, I'm going to factor from these two. X plus 2 squared plus 7 over 2 minus 4. So I have 7/2 minus 4 over 1 times 2 to both sides. So I have 7/2 minus 8 over 2, negative 1/2. So I have 2x plus 2 squared minus 1/2. Now I have to distribute that 2. So I have 2x plus 2 squared minus 2 times 1/2. So I have 2x plus 2 squared minus 1.